or been programming for about 25 years, doing quantified self for about 20 years, and then tracking and doing performance management and business intelligence for the last 10 years at Rogers. So I'm a performance management architect at Rogers. Big data, we basically get a lot of data off the network, just so you know where my headspace is. These are just some activities I'm interested in, and I constantly do projects like quantification in these type of areas. And these are kind of like my interests. So my interest is in best practice, my interest is in bioinformation, in dieting, in voiceover, in voice analytics, researching, stand-up. And basically the things that you see in bold are the ones that were at least stimulated in what I currently did in respect to the presentation I'm showing. I've done a lot of quantified self-type projects over the years, and mostly in these kind of areas. Media, like media consumption, my fitness, finance, cooking, sleep habits, diet, location, metabolism, psoriasis, just my social being. So a lot of these things are just major categories that I kind of hit over and over and over again. I've done a lot for, around, you know, a lot of the stuff I do has changed what I've done. So it's been changing me. So my diet now isn't just about recording what I do, it's changing what I do. And now I've done, you know, 20 or 30 diets. Now I'm constantly tweaking my diet. It's continuous to the point where I can't record everything that I do. It's just more complicated than it needs to be. But I like complexity. Is one of my things that I enjoy tracking, right? Complexity. So there's not a lot of separation between my projects. They kind of all bleed into each other. So showing one presentation on one project is difficult to do. So part of I do read a lot of books too, and I used to read a lot of physical books, and I kind of moved away from physical books and went to the virtual books. I incur the cost to pay for these books, or I find alternative mechanisms to these books, right? These are some of the books that I've currently read that kind of reflected this project in particular. Like Quantified said, a lot of the books, there's a lot of repeat themes going on over and over, especially in nonfiction. And a lot of, even I found that ideas are kind of like almost like walk paths where people constantly reuse. Like they kind of use the same examples over and over. They talk about Lincoln, they talk about George Bush, they talk about September 11th, stuff like that. And I find it interesting that these authors are constantly going and using these same examples over and over again. Are they just referencing the book, or did they come to this example all by themselves because of the media? I'm not sure. I just find that interesting to follow and track. So some of these books is about gamification, and then part of the process for me to quantify myself is to kind of gamify my activities to make it more interesting. Right? I'll kind of get to that a little bit later. So these are the kind of so this presentation is more about improving my cognitive performance. I want you to cut that for the first step. So I did some internet research, and I looked at some of the areas that I wanted to focus on. A lot of the books that I read all hinted towards these kind of categories. So brain dominance, recall, tracking, flexibility in general. So one of the books that I read was a book on fitness, and it was Athletic Body and Balance. And then the cool thing is, you know, in trying to improve some of your performance around, you know, your top speed, your how high you can jump, how fast you can throw a ball. But a lot of it has to do, according to this book, your body balance. So it had a lot of suggestions on how you shouldn't just focus on your performance from a strength perspective or a top speed perspective. You should try to improve some sort of body balances, your left and right dominances. So they gave some suggestions about how to do that. An example would be to, instead of just doing dumbbells, if you don't have a balance in your left and right arm, then you would do 2 dumbbells on one side and 3 dumbbells on the other side, measure it, and then keep on seeing if you're improving on your maximum weight. Right? When I first started this, I couldn't write proficiently with both hands. Right? Part of my exercise was I eventually am proficient in both hands. So just as an example, and I can throw with both hands too, and kick and punch. But that's something that I wanted to do. So a lot of the readings that I did was about you know, playing a lot of games for around gamification, putting a lot of those new IQ type games that have built-in analytics, just to use those as a gauge of is my intelligence improving or adapting. But it's not that my intelligence is improving; it's that my game scores are improving, right? So I didn't get smarter. If anything, I think my verbal intelligence has taken a hit because I started messing around with my left and right body dominance, right? I think that played the biggest role, I think, was the left body dominance. So some of this was to follow your natural body rhythm for your hormones. So I basically wanted to test myself with these games, somewhere around 14:30. Exercise around 18, and then kind of like do some handicap learning or practicing just before noon. Right? And these times are picked from guidance from the books that I read, and I think they made the best score. So basically, if I was to randomly do tests, randomly do game trials any time of the day, it would also clock similar to what I have here. My poorest scores would be around the time that I would take when I would do the training, and then when I wanted to make the measurements and test to see how my test was, the highest scores would be around 14:30. So I would test myself when I would score the highest, and I would train when I would score the lowest. And then exercise and sleep and all that is an overall rule according to all the books I read, and I think they do. So eat healthy, exercise, and those are foundations for mental exercise too. So my daily food journal is not exactly, I stopped really micromanaging the food I eat. I used to record calorie by calorie, everything I eat. Now it's more like templates. I create some sort of template around the diet that I would like to eat, and then I would try to conform to that diet as much as possible. I don't really record what I eat. I mostly record the exceptions of what I eat. Okay? So my diet basically has different kind of modes. Overall, it's a paleo diet. Probably a lot of you are familiar with paleo meats and vegetables. And then I do calorie restriction in general. I also do alternate day fasting, which I wouldn't eat for 24 hours, etc. And then there's some days I would eat 3 or 4 times my calories, which would be 4,000, 5,000 calories, just to kind of offset my metabolism. Right? I've lost a lot of weight and I've put on a lot of weight. And it's trivial to put on weight and lose weight for me because I can micromanage my diet. Right? And usually on the days that I would fast, let me go back to the days where I would fast, my performance would go up. My cognitive performance would go up. So I would use that as a mechanism to say, okay, now that I've achieved this higher performance, I can get there again. Right? I heard a saying from Bruce Lee once. If you want to kick faster, kick faster. So it's kind of, it doesn't sound like intuitive, but it kind of is intuitive, right? You keep on trying. How do you get there the first time? Right? And I think fasting is one mechanism that will get you the first time. Right? But the more you do it, it kind of wears out. The novelty kind of wears out, and then you have to do other kinds of novelties, right? The days that I donated blood, also, my performance goes up. So what I think is somehow my body is trying to, the way I reconcile it is somehow my body is trying to figure out what's going on, and maybe I'm paying 30% more attention that day, and because I'm paying more attention, I can score higher. Right? And usually because I've done that before, now my scores will track higher because I've reached that milestone, and that's something I can reproduce. Right? Another thing is introducing noise when you study, and then reducing noise when you test. Is some of these examples, right? But sometimes it's controlling my anxiety, right? How when I'm taking the tests, how anxious am I? And when I don't take the tests, how anxious am I? When I'm training, how anxious am I? And when I'm physically anxious am I? So there's some techniques that you learn to reduce your stress, right? But what I think happened to me was I've increased my overall stress, right? So now being in a stressful situation with information, I feel a little nervous, I'm a little anxious, right? And because I know what the signs are, I feel those emotions and energies, and it makes me more anxious, right? So it's almost like a closed back loop. And because I'm aware of it, it makes it even worse, right? Because now I can tell that I'm more anxious than I should be. But before I was oblivious to being anxious in the first place. But it worked backwards too. So instead instead of actually becoming less anxious overall, I'm either more anxious and aware of it, or extremely more confident because my confidence keeps on rolling higher and higher, and I can feel it, I can sense it. I do a lot of, I don't want to say body language analysis, but I can read my own body language. So one of the books I read was on body language, a few books I read on body language. And it wasn't as much to read everybody else's body language, which is a side effect, it was to read my own body language, right? Most people would read body language books because they wanted to read somebody else's body language. Me, it was for internal purposes, more about the quantified self. How do I look into myself more from an introspective perspective? Same thing with my voice. I can hear, I'm not sure, but I can hear my voice crackling sometimes, or when I speak, or when I approach a girl, or I hit on a girl, right? Or in general, right? And that kind of makes me even more anxious because now I can hear myself.
Yeah.
With my voice crackling. Maybe sound engineer can hear that for sure, especially if you do more voice tracking. I try to complicate things on purpose. So where Sasha would read lots of books, I would read lots of books to myself out loud, so I can hear my voice. And it kind of slows you down, but it slows you down when you're reading a book. But when you want to read fast, it helps you read faster in general. So you read out loud, you handicap yourself by reading out loud, right? But if you ever wanted to speed up, it helps your performance in speeding up in general. So just a little, like a hack that I would do. So this is around my diet, basically paleo and a few other things. One of my diet has evolved at the point where I want to eat something novel each time. Right? So I want to have something that I've never eaten before. From nature's perspective, right? It could be a snake, it could be an iguana, it could be a panda, right? Like some vegetable that I've never eaten before, right? And I think it's healthier, and it's a little more. It's about gamification, right? How do you find these food sources that are basically not mass-produced and not generally available, right? Trinidadian restaurants have some iguana meat. Now maybe I should go to Trinidad to eat some iguana meat because there's not that many Trinidadian restaurants in Toronto. Right? So, I've eaten kangaroo in Toronto and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm not sure if you guys have tried that. It's good. It's another part around my diet, and was around being able to taste different things. And you don't really have anything to compare it against if you've only eaten chicken. Right? Everybody says crocodile tastes like chicken. Well, if you've only eaten chicken, then it tastes like chicken. Right? So your palate is a lot smaller. But if you've eaten a lot more things, then you have a bigger palette to compare against, and then you're a little bit more selective. So my workouts kind of follow the same kind of philosophy. Some exercises I do on a regular basis. That 300. If you've seen the movie 300, it's the 300 kicks where you just kick straight ahead. Well, I would kick on use my left leg and my right leg until I can do about 20, 25, 30, depending on the size I do, or kettlebells. I would do kettlebell swings with my left arm and my right arm, and then I do Turkish get-ups on my left side and my right side until I can balance the same amount of weight and the same amount of repetitions on a regular basis. It's kind of hard. A lot of it's about body confusion, right? Even my diet's about body confusion, and my mind exercise is about body confusion, and my exercise is about body confusion. So I don't want to keep on doing the same exercise over and over again. I've been exercising probably for more than 20 years. It adds up. One of the things around exercising is sweat. The general thing is if you sweat, that's probably a good exercise. So that's a milestone is I would do sprints. Sprint, walk, sprint, walk, sprint, walk until I break a sweat. I'm completely drenched, and that's the beginning of my exercise. So these are some of the games I played to see if I could test my intelligence or increase my intelligence. Sudoku, Number Blitz, Snap Sort, Crack Code, Memblock. There was a whole bunch of other games, hundreds, maybe more than hundreds of games that I would play. I tried to find games that had mini games inside games, just to make it easier. But I kind of tried to go to games that actually had the built-in intelligence afterwards, that I didn't have to create my own intelligence systems to build. Over the years, I've been programming for 25 years. I can write code, without thoughts like writing for me or speaking. So that used to be actually just to write code, right? And then now it's now just tool in a toolbox. I'd rather focus on other things, right? But I will still program it. And some of this is to bubble up the most important things that I think about intelligent games or training, and then to write my own program. That should be after I've learned something about these programs in the first place. Because there's the deficiency in these programs that I want to do. Right? This is a sample game. It was called Snapsort. I'm not sure if you guys have played Snapsort. Basically, the top screen just shows, it flashes numbers at the top, and then the numbers disappear, and then you got to click using your iPad or iPhone on the number in the order. So it would be what? The middle, then 3, then 4. Then it gets harder and harder, more and more bubbles pop up, and it flashes the screen in less than a second. This is one of my favorite type games because I can have, let's say, 10, 20, 30 matches for iterations very quickly anywhere during a meeting, right? I can see how engaged I am in a meeting at work, gauge my attention by playing a quick game. I play a quick game, I should score around, if this game scores you by age, I should score around 22 or 18. Sometimes I score 36 and 40. That means I'm not that alert. Right? So it's a little bit, I use this also to gauge. Well, I'm going to write my own game for myself. Usually I program it. It's cheap for me to program anything. So a lot of it's going to be built based around this kind of concept, this kind of game. I actually built it and I started playing it. I don't want to play a game, see an intro screen, go through 5 to 6 different hoops and play the game. I just want to start, launch the app, play the game. The game will transform into another game. I should play another game. And I should never have to play the same game twice. Like my diet, I shouldn't have to eat the same animal twice. So the brain training game kind of creates graphs. And I went to a remote island in Greece, and I played this game hundreds, I don't want to say thousands of times, but I played this game thousands of times. Right? So this was just a weekly snapshot of my improvement. What interests me is not so much this is the different areas. What interests me is that spike in the beginning from not having played it at all to maybe 2 or 3 weeks playing it. That's, when I look at this graph, I see that's my most learning. That's where I learn the most. And that's when I'm learning a new game. So, this kind of led me to the concept of constantly playing a new game, right? And that's what I kept on doing. And I'll get marginally better, faster at playing new games in general. Right? The game that I want to write is basically take, all these kind of games that I like in versions of 100 and 150 different sets, have the application kind of create its own permutations of the game and its own game physics, and then challenge me with a game I've never seen before. So I can always take advantage of this curve in the beginning, learn faster. So these are where my score is afterwards in the brain train profile. I started off, I think, in the 70s overall profile, and now I'm in the 99 range, percentile range. Here is, they score arbitrarily based, and you compare you against somebody else. That's what I like. I like to be measured against somebody else. I can see where I fall in. In the beginning, I thought I was a horrible game player, so I didn't think I would even make the 70th percentile. Right? That's somewhere where I started. It says these are device dependent, so these kind of metrics kind of stick with the device. And they only compare you against iPhone owners and iPad separate, desktop separate. So this is basically a game that I would play over and over again. This is a game that I play to test my novelty in my first game try. Right? It's all about that first game try experience. This was a collection of 5 games, right? I scored 97 out of 425 players in my first try in the rankings, right? I was 53 in Flash out of 271 people that participated. So overall, it's about the 82 percentile. So I scored an 82 percentile on my first play. So my first play wasn't just the first time I played that game. It was the first time I played that game, and I had a few shots, a few little matches, and then whatever that match was when I stopped playing that game. So it wasn't the first time I ever played that game. It was the first session that I played the game. And that's what I like. I want to improve that score. The first time I try a new activity, how much can I improve? So I'm better now at brain games. Because I'm training my dominance, trying to break my dominance, my left and right imbalances. I'm better at writing, drawing, and typing. So a side effect of increasing my memory was that I learned to type. As a programmer, I started programming at a younger age, and I was a touch typist. And it didn't really click to me how to memorize the letters. After I tried to correct my left and right balances, I tried to practice typing, and somehow I knew where all the letters were. So then I got better at typing. So I started getting better at typing, much better at typing, very fast. And then after a couple of weeks, I was pretty good at typing. And then I went to some sort of hybrid model where I kind of touch type sometimes, and I type traditional typing sometimes too. So now I'm kind of like doing a hybrid of both typing and touch typing. I'm better at climbing and body weights for left and right side of my body. My literacy in Greek has gone up. Before I could only speak Greek. Now I can read and speak Greek. So, but I forced myself to go to Google News and read and do something challenging for myself and read the Greek news every day. Then I would use the mouse cursor over the Greek words and have it translated to a translator, an English word. Then I would see the association of Greek word, English word, and that would just help me learn the word faster. Right? Ideally, I should be reading it out loud. I think I'm a verbal, my verbal intelligence is higher in general, and reading it in my head, I don't score as high as hearing it with my ears. Parts of it was I learned 2,000 words in Spanish, and this is going up too. Right? So learn new vocabularies and test how fast you can learn new vocabularies, etc. I started doing 25 words a day, 25 new words a day. I have to review 100 words of what I had before. And some of the applications around learning a new language flash you the word and then let you do multiple choice of the answers. I find that sucks. My learning is zero. It should show me the word, let me guess it, the word in my head. Okay, that word is red. And then show me the word red. Then I would say, okay, was I right? Yes or no? And I should grade myself right away. And that's where the learning is much faster. Right? That's the mechanism that you have to do, that you have to naturally use when you speak to somebody. If they speak a language, you translate it instantly. You don't choose from a multiple choice, right?
How much longer have you got left?
Almost on the 10th.
Great. We'll give you like 5 minutes of questions.
Okay. So this is just some of my new app ideas to create a better app for myself, actually. I've already started doing an HTML5. I thought HTML5 would be device independent and portable, easier. But I know a handful of languages that are actively used today, and probably 10, 20 languages that are dead now. Questions?
I had a question actually about what you said earlier about when you matched your left and your right body.
It's not matched now, but it's better than it was.
Better. Yeah, you said it impacted you mentally as well, and I was just curious if you could expand on that.
So I don't control for variables. A lot. You can see it's not a scientific approach because this is not a science experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a rigorous body of people going to grade me afterwards, right? So I can just do whatever I feel like, right? So I do a lot of variables are changing. So I'm doing a lot of different projects like this. This is probably one of 20 active projects I'm on right now that I'm doing, and they kind of all bleed into each other. So there's not a lot of control. But what I found was I kind of have an inner sense, I think, higher than the average person, only because I pay attention to my inner sense more than everybody else does by learning body language, etc. So I kind of can read myself better. And for my verbal intelligence, I think my verbal intelligence has gone down, right? I've asked people all the time this question: how often do you think you're doing, you're talking to yourself with your internal dialogue versus visually thinking yourself through some sort of maze to find, let's say, where your keys are, versus not thinking at all, right? I used to be probably 90% verbally in my head at all times. It's hard to fall asleep when you're constantly in your head like that, right? And then now I'm probably 60%. So it's made a change, and it's not just that internal dialogue in your head; it's the other things as well. Like I said, I think my verbal abilities actually went down. So, but my spatial abilities gone up, and my memory's gone up.
Just by they say we think about 100,000 thoughts a day that go through our head, but how do you clear it so that you're not like it's like going and going and going?
So the way I have visualization techniques that I use, to fall asleep, I basically think of an exploding, an expanding blackness, right? And then I just try to expand the blackness in my head as far as I can. So that's a visualization technique that I use to kind of calm my mind before I go to bed. But another thing to calm my mind, instead of just talking to myself, I listen to my breathing, or I try to control my breathing and just try to listen or pay attention to the environment a little bit more than I would normally do. But I think I pay attention a lot more than most people do because I've been getting better at paying attention. It's that repeat cycle of paying attention, paying attention, paying attention, and you get better at it. And that internal dialogue in your head, if you keep on thinking, you keep on thinking, you get better at keep on thinking, and you keep on thinking, it spirals out of control. Okay?
I was wondering if you have ever monitored your blood glucose level.
Yeah, I can.
Well, I was just interested. You were talking about your diet and how that relates.
Yeah, so
to
your blood.
cognition.
Okay, so I've done a lot of tests. Right. I monitor. All my readings are in excellent range.
Okay.
And every time I see doctors, like, "What are you doing here? Get out of here!" So I think fasting and calorie restriction has improved my biomarkers amazingly.
So people have definitely found links between blood glucose and cognition.
I found the same. Oh, the low blood glucose or high?
Well, it depends, and I think it's maybe more a factor of the fluctuation in blood glucose. And
yeah. So my blood glucose is lower than average, a lot lower, and that's because I don't eat a lot of sugar. My diet is mostly paleo. It fluctuates all day long after a meal, etc. Right? So I think my insulin spikes very fast, so I'm very insulin sensitive, and then my insulin drops and recovers very fast too. But I actively control the insulin spikes by eating stuff like cinnamon, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So milk is hypoinsulinic, so I would have that with cinnamon to kind of flatten that out.
And so are you interested in like a continuous blood glucose monitoring?
My sister's diabetic and she has all those kind of tools. Okay. It's not a continuous closed loop like that. But I think I don't have a glucose insulin problem. If anything, I'm on the great side, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So measuring it would be just extra information. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely a correlation. I've seen it myself, and plus.
It was kind of really interesting hearing you describe your experience because it sounds like you've done this for a long time. And a bunch of questions come up. One of them has to do with kind of training versus exploration. Like thinking about Quantified itself, it seems like a lot of it is training. It's like about control, right? So one starts out with an objective and then it's striving for adherence to that plan, control, training. But another side of the coin could be exploration, which is not about training, or emergence, which is about mindfulness. So I thought it was interesting how you described your training regimens and your eating regimens, but you also mentioned that you were going to have something new to eat like every. So I found it nice that you kind of that you stipulated a certain element of emergence in that.
That's the gamification portion. That's the development, my life being, my experiences, right? And I think, for me it's not about adhering to a diet. I've done all the diets that you could read about. It's more about creating my own diet and walk a path that no one else has walked. Eat an animal that no one else has eaten. The way I cook the recipes, like I'm a pretty good cook, and it's because I never cook the same thing with the same ingredient list. And instead of using lemon, I would use rhubarb. And instead of using wheat, I would use almonds. Instead of using almonds, I would use. So constantly have these kind of substitutes, right? I can make you the traditional Greek Mediterranean type meals with completely different ingredients, and you're going to think they're the same traditional Greek meals because now I have that ability to, let's say, do some sort of pre-taste in my head.
And kind of building on that last question between kind of control versus emergence, do you notice that when if you're that kind of if you're that deliberate and that self-aware, do you notice any changes in the rapport that you experience with others when you are in that headspace that's so
I'm an
mindful of
alien.
yourself?
I'm an alien. From most people that I talk to, I'm completely different. But maybe this small group community, I'm a little bit closer to. But I'm definitely an alien. I'm not into sports. I work at Rogers, so I know that the second most popular channel are the sports channels, right? I'm not into those kind of sports. So that probably puts me off of, let's say, 80% of the males out there who are into like sports. Right? I'm into being more being about physical, maybe about playing sports, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely not in what we call the long tail, the short or the top 10 list, right?
Yeah.
If anything, I'm in the
Yeah,
thousand down.
I didn't mean so much in terms of how you compared to other demographics, but I meant if you're so conscious of yourself, do you find that you're still able to be kind of conscious and aware of other people, like whether it be body language or kind of?
I think so. I think because I know body language, I can read facial expressions.
Mm.
That just ties me, and I'm paying so much attention to you than I normally wouldn't pay.
Okay.
You know, your face, right? I have like what's the word? I pay a little bit more attention to people's faces than most, and it's because it's almost like it's not a sexual cue, but it could be considered a sexual cue.
Sure.
Right? And it's all faces.
Mm-hmm.
So I pay a little bit more attention to your face, and maybe I'm exercising that that brain part of your brain a little bit more than most people do. And that might take away from you looking at your body, but I'm exercising that specific spot, so maybe it makes me a little bit more different.
Is that like photographic? People look at words or letters or
No,
photographic?
if anything, it created me. I was a little bit dyslexic, it probably made me a little bit more dyslexic doing these kind of things. But I think it's the experience of feeling a little bit different than I felt, a month ago. Right? So I'm like, wow, I feel different. Maybe I should have done that. Good?
Okay, thank you.